Hi guys, right, okay, this week we're going to be doing some comedy writing. Now, in order to be successful, we're going to use a range of comic techniques and we'll go through those in just a minute. And I want you to recall a funny event from your life. That might have been something that happened last weekend, could have been a few years ago, it could have been at school or at home or on holiday. That's entirely up to you. So you might need to spend a few minutes just thinking about what that moment is. Now, here's the real big challenge, guys. I want you to retell the story orally. That means we're going to do two things. One, we're going to write it, and two, we're then going to do a verbal retelling of the story, just like a stand-up comedian would. Now, you're probably wondering, why on earth are we bothering to do that? And it's because of this. By now, at this point in the year, we've normally been to France, or we've had our experience week at school. But sadly, of course, with everything that's gone on, we haven't been able to do that. And at this point, we're normally writing our end of year show, which is based on your memories. And we try to make those really, really funny. So this is an actual piece of writing that we would do for our end of year show. But of course, as you know, we've all been stuck inside during lockdown, looking a bit like this guy. And I'm really pleased that some of you guys have got back to school. Sadly, I haven't, but watch this space. So we're going to try and lighten the load and cheer ourselves up and write something that's really funny. Not just Donald Trump funny, but actually really funny. Right, so our comic techniques, let's have a look. Now, some of these you're already going to know, so I won't spend too long on it. Repetition, you know exactly what that is and why we use it. Metaphor, we already know that anyway. But for comedy, we want to choose our metaphor very, very carefully so that we can paint a really clear, vivid picture for our reader, or in this case, our listener. Juxtaposition, we've used a few times this year, where we get two vastly opposing ideas and they kind of collide in the middle for comic effects. So we got that there. James Bond, the famous spy, he's now running his own shoe shop. You wouldn't imagine it, but it makes it funny. Misdirection is a really useful comic technique as well, because it gives you a natural punchline that's easy to come by. So we got that example there, but if I was going to use one for my own profession, I might say something like, I used to cry on the way to school every morning because I was scared of the bullies. That's when I realised I really shouldn't be a teacher. Slapstick. The British are brilliant at slapstick. People falling over, hurting themselves, tripping over, walking into windows and things like that. It's funny. Right? If you imagine slapstick, if you remember last year when Year 6 did their show, I'm very sure you remember one of the lads staggering in dressed up as Mrs. Hamilton, high heels, skirt, and when he fell onto the stage, absolute comic genius. So that's the bit when you fall over or that funny moment happens. Okay? Inversion. This one's a little bit more difficult. That's where you take a normal situation and make it the opposite of what it actually is. So if I was going to think I've got to be very professional to meet Mr. Poulter, and then I rock up in, I don't know, a Superman costume or something like that. So I've really got the wrong end of the stick. Absurdity. Again, we're quite good at that in British comedy. So we have a random comment that doesn't really fit. So the example there, teacher, what's the capital of France? Student, badgers. I can actually remember that a few years ago when I was teaching, back in my old school. I was asking a question about maths, times tables or something, and I happened to say to this child, okay, so what's 3 times 18? And a genuine answer, without any hint of a laugh or a smile, was rainbows. I laughed, she laughed, but the head teacher was in the room at the time, she didn't laugh. And last one, put downs. Now be very, very careful with this one, because it says there, being cheeky can sometimes be funny. Of course it is, it's really funny in fact. Put downs are used to kind of take a little bit of the mickey out of someone. So it could be really, really funny if you do it sensitively and do it well. So we got that example there. Right now, you're about as much use to me as a snowman in a heat wave. Or as my dad used to say to me, you're about as much use as a chocolate teapot. Cheers, Dad. Okay, so on to the planning and writing of the story. Now for this week, I haven't uploaded a planning sheet because everyone's stories are going to be very, very different, or at least I hope so. So what I want you to do is watch the video and see how I've structured my piece of writing. Have a look at the model as well, and you might want to use some of those same ideas in terms of the structure. Certainly, the first thing you might want to do is the where, the when, the who, and the why. You've got to give that background context. We can't just go straight into the funny bit, because actually some of the humour and some of the comedy might well be in the context of the story itself. For me here, I'm a teenager. I want to get out and have some fun at the amusement arcades when I'm on holiday, but my mum and dad want to take me to Boring Waterfall. Okay, so that's building the humour before the actual funny moment. You might want to describe yourself and have a little bit of fun with it, and we'll come back onto that in a moment. So I've colour coded on the model how I've used some of these comic techniques. I've got a juxtaposition there about coming on holiday for the amusement arcades but going to see a boring old waterfall. And my put down, I've actually chosen to have a put down of myself because that's easier to do, and I think we're more confident when we do that because we don't want to necessarily upset people when we're doing a put down. Okay, so I've just taken the mickey out of myself. There I was, a typical teenager, lanky, spotty and clumsy. That's all true. Now my repetition there, I've kind of gone with this idea of my clothing, and because I was in the 1990s, we like to have our clothes with the maker's name plastered across it in big letters. Puma trainers, Puma tracksuit bottoms, Puma sweaters, and probably Puma pants as well. And the probably Puma pants works as well because it's alliterated. Now onto the build up, some funny bits before the real funny bit. So just like a story, we entertain our reader or our listener on the way to that big climax. So in this case, the funny bit. So again, just look at the structure and the way I've done it, and you might be able to apply that to your own story idea. So I've gone with this idea of poking fun at other people in the scene. Give them a voice. So your reader or your listener can actually almost hear them, what they sound like. So here I am. We're at this place in Devon, Becky Falls it was called. And my mum thought everyone was lovely. Okay, the trees were lovely, the water was lovely, everything was lovely. And my brother, who's older than me, thought everyone was just lame. Okay, so we've got these two characters already. Mum thinks everything's brilliant, my brother thinks everything's rubbish. And my dad, he's just filming it on the video camera. Can you imagine that? Actually having a big handheld device that only takes videos. Yep, you don't know the struggle, kids. After that, I've gone on to finish building up by positioning the audience. Okay, so I'm just going to let them kind of know what's about to happen without actually telling them. So I'm putting them in a position ready for the big laugh. Now, I've used a couple of metaphors here because I want to build up this idea of the waterfall being this massive epic thing, which actually it wasn't. So my first one there says the 8th wonder of the world. Now, there are famously 7 wonders of the world. So I've gone with this idea of it being the next undiscovered big wonder. Of course it isn't. It's a tiny little waterfall in Devon, but I'm not telling my audience that. I've then gone on to call it the trickling tidal wave of death. Of course it isn't. It's a little waterfall, but it just helps make it sound a bit more dramatic and impressive. And again, I've gone for a bit of repetition. Remember, your repetition doesn't have to happen straight after you last said it. So in this case here, I've gone for gymnastic grace, which I mentioned earlier on in my piece. So you can repeat it at different points. And on to the funny bit at last. Here we go. This is the moment you've been waiting for, and most certainly your audience has been waiting for. Okay? This is the laugh. Begin by describing the event. But just wait for that punchline. Don't go into it too quickly. Okay? When you hear about comedians talking and they talk about their skill, which is a skill, they talk about comic timing. Okay, so you need to just tease your audience a little bit. I've gone into quite a long, convoluted explanation of how I came to fall into the river. Okay, so I've gone for a few different ideas first, describing how I was moving, how I was feeling, what I could hear, and it's important that you do that as well. Just tease your audience along a little bit. And at the end, I want you to speed up. So using those short sentences to finally gather pace as you reach that punchline. Slapstick. My story is built for slapstick. I'm falling into a river. Since when isn't that funny? So there I go. Off I went, bounding from rock to rock like a gazelle. Then it all went belly up. 1 foot skid on a rock, and I knew I was doomed to crash to a humiliating end. Time went into slow motion, and I could hear the crowd urging me to hit the water. I hit the water like a bison falling down the stairs. My arms and legs were flaming everywhere. The water was freezing, so I quickly climbed out. Water poured out my shoes, water poured out of my pockets, and water poured out my ears. Well done if you also noted the repetition there. Now for the conclusion. So just like any other story, you need to wrap it up and tie it up neatly so the audience knows that it's finished. So, we want to discuss how people reacted to this funny moment. And did we learn a lesson, or did something else come of it? So in my model there, you can see that my dad, bless him, decided that not only would I never hear the end of it, but in fact he'd send it off to You've Been Framed. So every once in a while, I have to sit and watch it on TV so the entire nation gets to see it. Now, you might think that I'm making that up. Guess what? I'm not. Here it is.
He's got it. He's got a booey.
I didn't think it was that funny.
That's right, isn't it? Unfortunately, Mother did not find it at all funny.
So to recap, to be successful, you're going to need to use a range of comic techniques, recall a funny event from your life, retell it orally, and finally, please, upload it to admin. Good luck.